Hey, what's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Roll Pod, an Alabama sports podcast from Bama 247. I'm your host, Cody Goodwin, with a special guest that we have not heard from in a very, very long time. It's our recruiting guy, recruiting guru, Brett Greenberg, back on the show. We're going to talk some recruiting today, as we always do with Brett. But first, Brett, it's been a hot minute since we've had you on the show. I know that Alex, Mike, and I, and occasionally some other guests have kind of taken over the Roll Pod feed, but it's good to have you back on, man. How have you been before we get into all the fun recruiting stuff?
Yeah, I think it's been good. Happy to be back on. Excited to be back on in the future. I know I haven't been on the Roll Pod, but people I've seen have been active just on the boards and online as well, just with recruiting kind of never stopping. But it's, we joked about it off camera before. It's kind of the not slower time, but Alabama's going to start hosting recruits soon on official visits. So kind of get as much sleep as I can before that starts to really get rolling over these next couple of weeks, and soon to be hopefully some good news for Alabama fans to come and report on this Roll Pod.
100%. I assume you're sleeping a lot easier now too, because the Braves are finally at long last back to 500, right? Like that probably helps things.
Yes, but it's like then they sit at 500, then they go up one, and then they lose the Nationals on the road, and so it's a little rough just kind of knowing how talented the team is. I know you've kind of seen on the board we have enough Alabama / Braves fans to kind of have a conversation. It seems to be kind of like what you said. It's like kind of annoying, but it's still May, so there's plenty of time to go.
Yeah, not even I think 50 games in, so they're back to 500. I know that it seems just living in the South now, there's a lot of Braves fans, and I kind of knew that, right? Just like given their history and the whole broadcast stuff, and just I knew that they would kind of trickle all around the South. But it's been kind of fun from an outsider's perspective to just kind of follow the thing, and obviously a lot of people on our board are big Braves fans, so they've been an interesting team to follow and learn about. So, but at least Braves fans are a little bit happier now than maybe they were at the beginning of the season when they started 0-6 or something crazy like that.
0-7.
0-7. Yeah, who's keeping count, right?
I appreciate that. On Roll Pod, we're honest. We keep it honest. It was 0-7.
There you go. So 0-7. So yeah, so we brought Brett on to discuss some recruiting. We're going to take a way too early look at Alabama's 2026 class. Currently 5 guys committed in the class. We're going to kind of look at where that's at, what the state of the class is right now. We're also going to look ahead, some dates and some names to know this upcoming month. It's going to be a really big official visit month for Alabama, bringing a lot of superstars on campus. We're going to tap into Brett's brain to figure out what the odds are that they might land some of these guys, who he feels good about, what are names that maybe other Alabama fans need to know when it comes to the recruiting trail. So that's going to be the bulk of today's show. But first, Brett, I wanted to start here, not just about the Braves, but also about softball, man. I know that in your past, you covered Alabama softball. They just won the Tuscaloosa Regional this past weekend, able to beat Virginia Tech twice. They're back in the Supers for the 3rd consecutive year. And if my math is correct, the 19th time in the last 20 NCAA tournaments. It's amazing the level of consistency that Patrick Murphy has this program rolling. They got a really tough test coming up here this weekend against number 2 Oklahoma, the 4-time defending NCAA champs. Believe the Sooners have 7 national titles since 2013. They have a rich history, they being Alabama and Oklahoma, a rich history of postseason matchups and also maybe some near misses in the most recent future as Oklahoma has kind of rattled off all these championships. But you used to cover Alabama softball. I know that you still follow that program pretty closely. You have a pretty good relationship with Murphy and maybe not so much the current crop of softball players, but you still keep tabs on them. I'm curious, man, watching them do the things that they do year after year after year, and then especially the last couple of years when maybe it hasn't been their best teams, but this program, I feel like, has kind of prided themselves on grit and heart and just being able to continue to do the thing and compete at the highest level. Just what was your kind of takeaway of maybe their season as much as you've been following it, and then especially their performance at the regional this past weekend?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it right there. And it's kind of funny. I think it's been 2 or 3 seasons since I last covered them. And I think Patrick Murphy's been fired every single offseason by either people on our board or on Twitter. I put something out after. I'm glad you brought up those numbers. Like 19 of 20 going to super regionals and regional wins. I put something out similar to that point. It's just the consistency that he brings. And yes, like you said, it might not be the big time talents of Montana Fouts and Bailey Hemphills and other names like that. But there's Kaylee Hevlin, who's a 4-year senior who's there that's really brought a lot. There's freshmen competing. There's Jenna Johnson's little sister, Lauren Johnson. So there's a lot to like there. And there's a lot, like you said, grit. I love that grit. Mudita that he brought to Alabama basketball that we've, been accustomed to. But yeah, I mean, you talk about a super regional matchup of super regional matchups. Like if Murphy and Alabama can go in there and beat Patty Gasso and the Sooners, I mean, it's going to be wild. And then the other way around, I mean, that place is going to be rocking. Oklahoma comes to Tuscaloosa earlier in the year and loses 2 out of 3 in a road stadium. I saw some things though on our board on Twitter. It's like, welcome to the SEC. Here's a now. I've never been to Oklahoma for a game, but I'm willing to say that's probably a rivalry type of environment to road stadium. So that place is going to be absolutely rocking and should be probably one of the hottest tickets in the super regional round.
Oh, I believe it too. And especially you mentioned the series that they had earlier this season at the roads. Like, one, record-breaking crowd was there for all 3 games. And 2, when you go back and kind of look at how that series unfolded, Alabama had 1 bad inning. Otherwise, they played their style, they imposed their style of play on the Sooners, which is really, really hard to do because you look at the way that the Sooners have been winning. They've always had really good pitching. They've always been able to hit the snot out of the ball. And so for Alabama to be able to slow it down, play their, good pitching, great defense, small ball style of play, and able to do that largely over the course of all 3 games. I know they ended up winning 2 of the 3 games, Alabama did. But, I mean, all 3 games, I thought that they played really, really well. And, going to Norman, I wonder how much of a difference that's going to make. And then also on top of that, you've got an Oklahoma team that is kind of looking for slights and looking for reasons to get mad, right? And now you've got the team coming in that, handed them 2 of their 7 losses this regular season. I'm really excited to kind of follow it this weekend. And, it's going to be a tall task, right? Having to go to Norman and try and knock off the 4-time defending national champs. But I mean, hey, they proved they could do it in the regular season. So you got to think that gives them a level of confidence going in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think there's something to be said about the fact that they did it. Yes, it was at home, but this is an Oklahoma team. And quite frankly, Alabama is a top-tier program as well. But again, Oklahoma's won 4 straight. They're the cream of the crop. Everybody's chasing after them. They've got the target on their back. They know that. And like you said, they're kind of Patty Gasso in that group. They're trying to find reasons to get this group fired up and be able to make that quick trip from Oklahoma to Oklahoma City to play in the Women's College World Series. And I know Alabama fans would love nothing more than to kind of shut that down. I know Murphy, I believe he said after the regionals, they're packing for however long they need to be out there. So I kind of like that attitude. It's like, hey, we're packing, we're ready to go. We're going to be out there for a long time. So there's a lot of confidence for sure. And like you said, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, packing for 2 weeks, I believe was what Patrick Murphy said after winning the regional. So we'll see what happens, right? First game is this Friday, 4 p.m. Central Time. The game's going to be in Norman. So believe that first game's going to be on ESPN2. So be sure to tap into that. I know I'll be paying attention to it and following along. And it's going to be a pretty fun series, man. It'll be cool. And if they're able to somehow navigate that, maybe similar, not dissimilar to maybe what they did last year, right? I know last year the offense really, really took a step back for Alabama, but they had Caleb Beaver in the circle and they were able to navigate Tennessee, I think, in the Supers, who was, I think, the 3rd overall seed in the NCAA tournament. So Oklahoma's the number 2 overall seed, Alabama coming in slightly better offense, but maybe some defensive struggles during the regular season, but they seem to have shored that up on the final stretch of the regular season. And especially over the regional, I thought they played really, really well. So we'll see what they can do. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to transition now into what we brought Brett on for, which is some recruiting discussion. I wanted to start here, Brett. We're 2026 class for Alabama. Currently only has 5 commitments. Run through those right now. Jordan Edmonds, 5-star cornerback from Georgia. Zion Gibson, 4-star athlete from Alabama. Jamarian Matthews, 4-star edge from Georgia. Chris Booker, 3-star defensive lineman from Georgia. And then Cam Johnson, a 3-star edge from Alabama. 2 of these guys, Jordan Edmonds and Zion Gibson, are considered top 100 recruits. Jamarian Matthews is considered a top 247 guy. Not a lot of names so far. Looking at some of the other schools, that doesn't seem to be a huge surprise. Looking at Alabama's history, especially with this staff, not a huge surprise that in late May, there's not a ton of commitments. And we'll get into this too with a lot of visit dates and a lot of big names that are going to be making their way to campus this summer. But when you look at these 5 guys, what kind of stands out about these 5 guys, and maybe are there hints about how the staff is going to approach filling out the rest of this 2026 recruiting class?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look right off the bat, and I guess it's the easy answer, but it's the top two recruits they have in this class. I know Zion Gibson's listed as an athlete, but he's going to play cornerback wherever he goes to school, and he continues to be locked in with Alabama. But after what Alabama did, not only keeping guys, you bring in a Dijon Lee, a Chuck McDonald, you're following it up with right now. And again, I'm going to say this 100 times on the show. There's a long way to go, whether these kids are committed or not until December. There's a very long way to go. But you look at it, Jordan Edmonds, number 1 cornerback in the country, Zion Gibson, number 6 cornerback in the country. That's 2 more top 10 talents in that secondary. And everyone you talk to, from Jordan to his coaches, to Alabama, to analysts. I mean, I think they said, one quote from our Cooper Patagna, who does a great job at 247, was saying, Edmonds is just another pterodactyl-like cornerback in that room. I think a lot of people saw it. Jordan Edmonds and Dijon Lee were working out together in Atlanta. The trainer, I think I should have some more later on this week, but he talked about how Dijon Lee was one of the most physically gifted guys he had, and it looked like a picture of Jordan Edmonds. He looked even bigger than him. So it's like the easy answer, but Jordan Edmonds, Zion Gibson are kind of your headliners. You're probably looking at those are going to be your 2 guys at the cornerback position in the class. Again, it's a pretty loaded room. We joked about constantly. It was, hey, what's going on in this room? Now it's, oh my God, is everybody going to play? Especially with everybody, staying put. And then Jamarian Matthews, this guy that, listed in Gainesville, Georgia, playing in Gainesville, Georgia, but he's an Alabama native that a lot of people know. He played at Sparkman. So I like to consider it an in-state commitment for those that are very, very stuck on in-state versus out-of-state, and what you will tell, pick what you want, whatever. But he's a guy that just entered the top 247 recently, went out to Under Armour Nashville and very, very much stood out. Not the biggest guy, but kind of like that pickup truck. He looks like he's going to be a good bandit in the Alabama defense. Andrew Ivins, director of scouting, called him kind of a, above average defender with a Duramax engine, guy that can kind of get molded. So there's a lot to like there. Chris Booker, listed as D lineman. I got to get that fixed. He's going to be an offensive lineman. Went and saw him this spring. I've seen all these guys this spring. Went and saw him recently. It's funny. I remember they got this commitment in February, and a lot of people on our board were like, who is this kid? He's got, USF and Liberty, I think it was, maybe a couple others, Kentucky on there for sure. Why are we taking this commitment? I remember saying, hey, wait a couple months, this guy's going to blow up now. I mean, I was at his practice and I had just missed Georgia and Florida were coming to see him. And then the coaches were talking about how he's got official visits locked up there. And this is a guy that's going to continue to explode. And there's something to be said from Coach DeBoer, Coach Cap, and Coach Sharon, all those guys that identified this guy, Chris Booker, as a, early eval, very, very good early eval. There's a lot of trust there. This is a kid that doesn't really come from a lot, comes from a small program, kind of builds a lot of trust, loves the relationship. Alabama continues to check in with him. So, there's still a long way to go there, but a lot to like with him and just the early eval. And then Cam Johnson, I believe he's the most recent commitment in April. Still learning a lot more about him, but he's out of Muscle Shoals, very, very productive edge defender. Looks like he's probably going to be a Bandit as well. So if you look at it, kind of a defensive heavy class to start, aside from Chris Booker, but you like adding guys like a Jamarian Matthews and a Cam Johnson, both Alabama natives, like Alabama a lot, kind of at that Bandit position. You never can have too many of those. I know I kind of spewed right there, but like you said, it's still very, very, very early in the class. And if you look last year, I think Alabama only had 3 commitments in the group. And I know that's kind of a one-off just with the staff getting there. So I guess late, in January, but Alabama's in a good spot. You talk to a lot of analysts, they're not worried about it. I think, if you had to pinpoint one thing, it's, the quarterback position, which I think we'll probably get into, is we saw a lot of movement over the last week or so.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of branches on that tree to maybe pick off of. And I think I wanted to start with Jordan Edmonds and the Zion Gibson, like more defensive backs coming into this room. And I know that you and I have probably talked about this, and I think we also have written a story on it. Maybe it was you that wrote the story, that this cornerback room, really the defensive backs as a whole. I know that Alex and Mike and I have talked about this coming into the 2024 season. Last season, it was a little bit of a question mark, right? There was a lot of turnover. There were a lot of new faces. It's a new defensive system. How is it going to gel? Well, now I would argue, and I have argued, and I will continue to argue, that defensive back is probably the best single position group on Alabama's roster heading into 2025. I think a lot of that is because of the players, obviously, that are in the room, but also, and this is where I want to loop you in to see what these kids have been talking about, the addition of Mo Linguist and him at cornerbacks coach, and now him becoming basically the entire coach of the defensive back room, right? And it's a little bit of a duh thing when you're able to pull a sitting head coach and bring him in as a position coach, but very clearly, like, he has been able to remake this room, develop the guys that are already in the room. It doesn't look like this train is slowing down anytime soon. When you look at Jordan Edmonds, Zion Gibson, I'm sure there are other names on the recruiting trail that they are continuing to go after. They clearly have a type, right? You look at the way Dijon Lee is built. You look at the way Jordan Edmonds and Zion Gibson are built, and that's okay. Clearly, Mo knows what he likes. That's who he's going after. And not only that, but he's able to bring these guys in. He's able to develop them, and not just on the recruiting trail too, right? The addition of Cam Calhoun through the transfer portal, the addition of Damani Jackson, and being able to develop him and get the most out of his talent, right? He was a former 5-star guy that it obviously didn't work out as well as he thought it would at USC. Get a change of scenery, some different coaches. Boom. Now he's a really solid, I mean, more than solid. Like, he will probably be drafted in the 2026 NFL draft, right? Like, at least he's trending in that direction. Just what have you heard on the recruiting trail from these guys about Mo, about his recruiting style, about what he's able to do, about the development piece of it and how much that is weighing on a lot of these guys? Like, I feel like just you have Nick Saban, who's kind of the DB guru, and then you replace him with Mo Linguist, who, I mean, has Alabama's recruiting of defensive backs ever been this hot? Like, this is really impressive stuff, what he's been able to do, given everything that has happened over the last, 18 months.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to start, right where you ended. It was like, when Nick Saban stepped down and retired, it's kind of reassessing it. It's like, you would have told me cornerback, like, we would have this conversation about the secondary. I would have said, you're crazy. Like, these Alabama guys went for cornerback and went for Nick Saban to be coached by them. But again, that's something to be said by Coach Mo. I think one thing, and I've hit on it before, but like, I continue to hear both from parents and kids. It's like family. Like, when they meet Coach Mo, they're also meeting his kids, his wife. These mothers are meeting his wife to know that, he's a family man. They want to see him outside of football. It's a lot of what this staff does is outside of football first. But yeah, I put up multiple, like, kind of what they're saying about Mo, and it's just like family. I know I can get developed. He's been in the NFL. He was at the Cowboys, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He was a head coach. There's something to be said about that as well. And I think it's the energy that he brings to that is just kind of overwhelming. And not, to bring up Jordan Edmonds again, this is a guy in Georgia that Georgia really, really wants, and they're going after him. And I mean, they're going to continue to go after him. I put out a recent story about all these 5 commits, what I feel like is the biggest threat, so to speak. Georgia is the top of the list, and that's an in-state kid. For Coach Mo to come down here and pluck him away, presumably, and eventually be able to sign him is a big win. And then he did that out in Dijon Lee in California and beat out a USC at Georgia. So he's showing his ability to relate to Southeastern kids, California kids. So I think there's something to be said as well. And then, not a guy that gets talked about a lot is Jason Jones has been a very, very good addition as well. A lot of safety prospects I talked to love him as well. So it kind of, wheels are, like you said, it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. It's almost if like there's too many guys in the room. I mean, you look at, we're always looking ahead, and you're looking at the draft, and Damani's probably gone. A couple other guys are gone, but it's like you bring in a Chuck McDonald, but it's crazy, and it's a good problem to have for sure.
Yeah, able to stack the room with just nothing but 4- and 5-star guys, and then you got a coaching staff that knows how to get the most out of those guys. Like, that's champagne problems if you're Alabama.
And that's what I'm glad you brought that up, and I think I brought that up here too. It's like, so far, it's what's been said. I'm seeing, if I'm a recruit, I'm seeing it in games. I'm seeing it at practice. I'm seeing it at A-Day. Like, the scheme I'm being sold, I'm seeing in film, and they're taking time to sit down with me. And a lot of guys have told me, like, they sit down in a film session for, 2+ hours, and they're watching their high school film. And, if you're Xavier Griffin, you're watching Jahad Campbell's film, and you're watching, how they could be used, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit. I'm sure you love that comparison. So it's just very kind of meticulous. And like you said, to bring it back, I guess, to Jordan Edmonds, we joked about it. He's like, there's no answer for 3 to 4 6'3+ guys across the line. And for us to be able to play multiple positions, have 5 guys out there in the secondary, all versatility is just, incredible. And I'm kind of running through the rest of the secondary in my brain. And it's like Ivan Taylor. It's pretty wild how much better this room looks, from year over year.
Yeah, crazy all that can change in a year. And then you look down the line with all these recruits coming in too, and it's just like, dude, like, how are they going to play all these guys? I don't know. That's a later problem that the coaching staff is going to be charged with figuring it out. And that's why they get paid a bunch of money. But it's going to be interesting to see how all these pieces come together.
I will say, just with that, all that being said, with what we said and how it's not slowing down, I'm not saying they're recruiting better than Nick Saban with the secondary. That's probably going to get me in trouble. Now, Coach Mo and those guys need to produce the Pat Surtains and the Mika Fitzpatricks and those guys and all pros and all world talents at that level. Then we can have that conversation. But it's certainly on the right track.
An important distinction to make. Good point there. I wanted to transition, and maybe this is kind of the transition into what's coming up over the next month or so. But you look at this class, you had mentioned this earlier, a little bit defensive heavy as it stands right now, with 4 of the 5 recruits being defensive players. Is that a trend that you think is going to hold as the staff fills out the rest of this 2026 class? Or do you think that's where it just stands right now? Or if you were to look into your crystal ball, what do you think the theme of this 2026 class is going to be when all of these guys, when they finalize this class, when they're able to sign these guys by December? Is it going to stay defensive heavy? Or do you think there's going to be a little bit of a balancing out over the next month or so?
I think it is going to be defensive heavy. I think one, just again, how you guys have brought up just the scheme and the amount of guys they rotate, the amount of guys they love to bring in and just kind of see how they fit and things like that. I think it's going to be defensive heavy. Now, on the offensive side, you're looking at a couple potential additions that could count for, maybe more than one. We'll get into it, but there's a couple in-state guys that we've talked about a bunch on this board, on this site, that if you get those 2 guys, I think you're okay with maybe a smaller haul. You look at the cornerback room. I mean, you could argue maybe the receiver room could be as talented, maybe not as talented, but up there in terms of position groups. I don't know if receiver is going to be a huge need. You look at the running back room. I'm not sure that's going to be a huge need. Maybe, you look at, you probably get 1 to 2 guys. Offensive line, it's been a little bit of a question mark, not in the sense that there's not guys. It's like almost there's too many guys. And it's like, hey, where are they going to fit? We look at the class they brought in last year. They're very, very excited about that group. So, yeah, I think it's going to continue to trend defensively, just between the amount of, Wolf prospects, Bandits, and guys already committed, like you said.
So I think if I'm reading the schedule right, and Brett has a thread on the Bama 247 boards. If you haven't checked it out, please go check it out. He's updating it basically daily with new names that are coming in and scheduling official visits over the next month. Seems like the big visit weekends are going to start not this weekend, but next weekend. So that's May 29th through the June 1st. That's kind of the first week, big visit weekend. And that is the first of what looks like 5 consecutive weekends of really big official visits for Alabama. Those are the big dates on the calendar for this upcoming summer. Those are maybe the dates to know. I'm curious, Brett, just from what you have gathered so far. And again, a lot of this information is already on the board, but want to give a little bit of a tease to those who are just listening to the podcast. Who are the big names that Alabama needs to know that are going to come to campus over the next month? Like, what are the names that they need to know? Who are the guys that they need to be following? Who are some of the bigger names that they need to get invested in? Like, who do you have your eye on over the next month that Alabama's bringing to campus?
Yeah, like Cody said, there's a full list on Bama 247. I can get into all this, but we'll be here for 2 days, so I don't need to do that. But I did joke with one of the national analysts. It's like the weekends are almost competing with each other, like which is more stacked. Like it's a who's who for every weekend. Like it's also very meticulous. Like you talk to a lot of these recruits and it's like, yeah, the staff wanted me to take it this weekend, or no, they wanted me to do it this weekend. And we can get into that. But I mean, right off the bat, like you said, it starts May 30th and it gets off rolling. I mean, you got Jet Washington coming in, who is out of Bishop Gorman, former teammates with Derek Meadows over there in Las Vegas, the nephew of the late Kobe Bryant. It's kind of between, it seems like it's an Oregon-Alabama battle early right now. Now, I don't know how much NIL is going to play a factor in that. I don't know how much, that Phil Knight-Nike relationship will play into that, but Alabama's certainly doing a good job there, and they earned one of the first official visits. And that dude's 6'5", 200 pounds and plays safety. So you talk about type that this staff wants.
I was going to say, Mo has a body type that he likes in his defensive backfield, and to his credit, like those are monsters back there, man.
And kind of off on a tangent, I don't know if there is arguments, but like there's guys that could play linebacker that they want at safety. So I'm wondering like if Coach Morrell and Womack and Mo and Jones, like they get into it. Like I'm wondering how, because the board is just like freaks, so to speak. It's just like, yeah, he can play linebacker. There's guys that are being recruited at safety everywhere that only linebacker at Alabama. So it's just interesting. A couple other guys in that first weekend that I'm paying kind of extra attention to, so to speak, is Sincere Johnson out of Ohio, kind of close to Cincinnati. I've said it on the board multiple times. Kind of feels similar to that Justin Hill recruitment that, hey, he's going to Ohio State. He's from Cleveland. He's from there. He kind of wrap it up, whatever. And Alabama comes in, not late, but comes in January again and seems to make a very, very big impression. Visits twice, going to be back, is down to Penn State, Ohio State, Alabama. If Alabama could go in and, kind of steal one out of Ohio State's backyard again, it's going to be another big win and something that Ohio State fans are not going to like. So I'm closely tracking him as well. And then a guy out of the Peach State is Braden Rouse, who I went and saw him in the spring. He's a kid that was not even, I don't even think he was ranked as a freshman or sophomore. Now he's the number 4 linebacker in the country. And the amount of, I've said this like a couple times since the draft, but that Jahad Campbell first round pick is working wonders for these guys at that position. Braden Rouse looks like a Jahad Campbell like as well. Coach Morrell has talked to him multiple times. Like, and he's who I brought up earlier, like he's who told me, like, I've watched Jahad Campbell film. He's going to go visit Texas, Michigan, and one other school. I can't remember what it is, or Tennessee, excuse me, as well. That's guy I'm following. And then you look into that next week in that June 6th through 8th. Not exactly the theme. I'm not exactly sure of the theme or what's exactly going to go on that weekend, but there's something going on because 3 of the 5 commitments are going to be there. Jordan Edmonds was letting me know he moved his up from the June 20th weekend to the June 6th to 8th weekend because he wanted to be with more commits. That was kind of a staff deal, like, hey, we want you to be here. And you look at it, there's really not a surprise why. The number 1 linebacker in the country, Xavier Griffin's going to be there. 4-star safety, Jira Edwards out of St. Francis Academy, who I think is 6'4", 210 maybe as a safety, 6'3". So again, they have a type.
Another monster. The defensive back room is just going to be the Monstars after a while.
It's insane. I think someone put out like Legion of Boom, and I'm like, they're almost there. I mean, they still got a couple more pieces to go, but they're almost there. But yeah, that June 6th through 8th, there's going to be Jordan Edmonds, Jamarian Matthews, Kamarian Johnson. They'll all be there. There will be a couple big time commits. You talk to Jamarian Matthews, who again made the move from Sparkman to Gainesville. He's with his lifelong friend with Xavier Griffin. They grew up together in Alabama. I've always talked about playing together. Was at their spring game last week, and this is all on more detail on Bama 247 as well. But they, Jamarian was like, yeah, I'm in Xavier's ear every single day about going to Alabama. So I continue to like where Alabama stands going into a big visit slate. And it's good to hear, all these recruits are like, yeah, I'm recruiting for Alabama, but like you see it on social media, you see it when they're talking to me, they name specific guys. I've heard guys tell me that, coaches are reaching out to them saying, hey, hit up these couple guys. So it's kind of all hands on deck, and it's maybe not a big class right now, but there's plenty of time to go. You look into that third major weekend, so to speak, the June 13th through 15th, kind of a smaller group, but you get the number 1 athlete in the country and Brandon Arrington coming in. I think he ran like a 10-2 earlier this summer. He's just like a 10-3-1 or something like that. Like it's his his nickname is Dash. Like I have to double check it, but it's something insane.
That's nuts.
Yeah, he's a guy that's, considering, A&M, Oregon, I think is involved in the track side of it. I think a lot of these colleges are kind of committing to him on the track side of it as well, because his numbers are Olympic-like, I believe.
That's insane. And that's a guy too that just, if you go to his page, right, he plans on committing right after the 4th of July. So Alabama being able to get in within a month of his official commitment, like that's going to give them the opportunity to make a really, really good impression.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that. I was kind of bringing my next point. It's kind of closing time for that June 20 to 22nd official visit weekend. And you look at it, you've got Darian Morgan, who's the number 2 receiver in the country, number 1 player in the state. Continue to like where Alabama's trending there. I've continued to say it on the board. I'm going to continue to say that. It feels like he's going to have very good things to say about every single trip. He's going to Colorado, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, and one one other school. Still always thinks it's going to be an in-state battle. People I talk to around Auburn feel like Alabama's kind of leading right there. I continue to think that's the case as well. Zion Gibson's going to return. That's another commitment, in-state commitment. And then two other huge recruits coming in to close things out is Xavier Crowell out of Jackson, Alabama, and Anthony Tate Jones out of Mobile, Alabama. Most everyone reading or listening to this has followed those two probably since the 8th grade. These guys have been Alabama targets since before, like with Saban's class, and Robert Gillespie staying there with Xavier Crowell has been huge. He's a guy I get closer and closer to putting in a crystal ball with, along with Cedarian Morgan. He had originally planned to commit December 31st. I don't think he quite realized that was not within the early signing period, which we kind of joked about. So he's going to be coming out with commitment dates soon. I think that's probably going to be in the realm of where you see most normal commitments, kind of maybe a late June, early July after these official visits wrap up. But all signs point to Alabama there, and for Alabama to get the last visit, after he goes to a Texas, a Georgia, and a couple other schools, and gets offered what he's offered, it's good to kind of get back and home, so to speak. He's called it home before, and that relationship with Robert Gillespie is really big. There's a couple other guys as well. I can keep going on, but there's a full list. We're going to continue to provide full coverage. I have other contenders for top targets with official visits. I've got other spring practice recaps, and we're just going to continue to roll on. Receiver reset coming out today, wherever this will be. I think this is being aired on Wednesday. I don't know. I'm not sure when it'll be coming out, but there'll be receiver reset coming along with kind of the weekly position spring previews that Cody's been spearheading. So it's busy time, and it's only going to get busier.
100%. Yeah. Again, Bama 247 on the boards. Everything that Brett writes for us is behind the paywall. So if you want more information on all of these recruits that are coming in, you got to subscribe, put a link to do so in the show notes. Do take advantage of it. Had a couple of quick thoughts real quick. First off, I looked up Brandon Arrington's track numbers, ran a 10.33 100-meter dash and a 25.5 200-meter dash. And also he competed at Nike Indoor Nationals in the AAU Junior Olympics. That sounds like a guy that just you get the ball in his hands and let him do his thing. But I think it also looks like he's going to probably play defense. So who knows? I don't know. That's one of those athletes that it looks like you just get him in the room and you kind of figure out the rest of it when you get there, right? Right. That seems like a special talent.
Yeah, 100%. And I hate even bringing this up, but I don't. I've only talked to him a handful of times, but it seems like maybe NIL may play a little bit bigger factor than others. So that's just something to keep an eye out. And I've said it on this board. I've said it offline. I said to you, everybody, go get your money. Go do what you need to do. I would never hate on a kid for that.
100%. Yeah. The second thought that I had was obviously a lot of big visits coming up over this next month, the month of June. I think a lot of us remember last summer, Alabama had that quote unquote cold summer. I think that was GM Courtney Morgan. That was his kind of slogan for last summer when they were able to collect, what was it, like somewhere between 8 and 10 commitments over the month of June.
It was 14 total.
14 total. Okay. So I was even selling it a little bit, but it feels like, Brett, and I'm sure this is kind of where I wanted to end today's show, the fact that they are really putting in a lot of work to do these things over the summer, right? It seems like summer, and especially like late May and really the month of June, seems to be the prime recruiting time, at least for this Alabama staff. Is that, do you like that? What are kind of your thoughts on the way that maybe they're approaching it? I mean, clearly it worked out for them last year. Is there something that you feel like that they can continue to keep doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I had kind of asked the same conversation with Tom Loy, who's our director of recruiting, and have a conversation up there on our site as well. It's Alabama's, say what you will, but there's still Alabama in the recruiting sense that they have the luxury of maybe taking a little bit while longer to, evaluate targets and maybe take their time and not rush things and, schedule visits a little bit more strategically. Like, you look at a USC who I think has, I can't put a number on it, but I think they have double-digit commitments in the fold already. That's a program and a GM that kind of wants to get it done and then let the play, sees for itself on the field and continue to lock those guys down. Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, they're very, very strategic about offers in general. I heard that one of the first things I heard about this staff is they aren't going to offer a lot of guys, and once they do, we're going after you. Certainly in-state as well. They're not offering in-state guys without seriously going after them. They're not in any rush. I think they have that luxury still, and any kid you talk to kind of reciprocates those same feelings. And kind of to that point, I probably brought it up, and I know we got to run, but the quarterback position, they did end up offering two guys, Jet Tamala, who's committed to Iowa State. Talk with him. We got a great feature up. He plans on taking an official visit. And again, we've said it, and I'm sure you've talked about it with Mike and Cody, or you're Cody, Mike and Alex. Sorry.
A lot of names flying. It happens.
It's a little difficult to navigate getting a guy to come after Keelan Russell. And you talk with some people close to the program, they're not in any rush. And I think they're going to continue to evaluate guys past the Jet Tamala and a Matt Ponatowski, who also got an offer from Ohio State. And for what I've talked to, could be drafted in one of the early rounds of MLB. And a lot of colleges are talking to him about both sports. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. But more specifically, the quarterback position, everybody you talk to, it's not going to be a worry. You look at what Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, and Ryan Grubb have done with guys. Really, Keelan's kind of a one-off in terms of rankings and guys they've brought in. I mean, the Michael Penixes, some of those other guys aren't highly rated. So what they've done with them. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think Alabama fans should as well.
100%. Quarterback is going to be something that we're probably going to pay attention to a lot as the summer unfolds. In addition to a lot of these other superstar recruits that Brett rattled off here today, I think, and I wanted to end today's show with kind of looking ahead into the future as well of the podcast. Not so much recruiting, but I think those two things are going to go hand in hand. Our tentative plan is to have Brett on at least every other week, if not every week, to kind of recap some of these big visit weekends. So I know that he does a really good job of just keeping tabs on kids and writing a lot of stories coming out of these big visit weekends. We're going to try and include some of that information on podcasts throughout the summer, just to kind of keep you guys up to date on how these visit weekends are going, the intel that Brett is able to gather. We can't promise every single week, but we're going to try our best to do every single week, if not every other week, to just keep up to date on the recruiting process and some of these commitments, because I'm anticipating Alabama's probably going to collect some commitments over the next month or so. So I know that we said we were going to throttle back on the podcast, but when it comes to recruiting, probably need to put at least a toe on the gas pedal so that we can kind of understand what's going on and keep everybody up to date. So we're going to have a lot more Brett on the show over the next month to just keep tabs on recruiting and such. And if you listen to today's show and you enjoyed it, and also if you've been following Brett online, you know that he's got the goods and he's going to bring the goods every single time. So Brett, man, that's really all I had for today. I wanted to make sure that we set the table for what's coming up over the next month. I really appreciate you jumping on. We will be back next week. I think it'll be Mike, Alex, and I. We're going to maybe play another off-season game. And if we have some time, we'll squeeze Brett back in to maybe set the table a little bit clearer for that first big official visit weekend. So that's a tentative plan. That's all we've got today. In the meantime, before we come back next week, be sure to rate and review this show wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, even our Bama 247 YouTube page. Subscribe to Bama 247 and 24/7 Sports. I've said it once. I'm going to say it again. I'll say it every single time we've got Brett on the show. Everything this guy writes is behind the paywall. So if you want more of the intel that he brought on today's show, you're going to have to buy a subscription. I put a link to do so in the show notes. You should absolutely take advantage if you haven't yet. As always, we appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll be back and talk again soon.
See you guys.